I have some disturbing news for journalists and advocates for freedom of speech around the world. Glenn Greenwald, firebrand lefty, legendary investigative journalist who is most known for his work publishing the documents that Edward Snowden stole from the NSA and the CIA that revealed exactly how the US government was illegally and unconstitutionally spying on every single person in the United States without a warrant, as well as their mass surveillance of basically everybody on the planet. Then later after that, went on to be a co-founder of legendary news outlet The Intercept with Jeremy Scahill and Laura Poitras, has just been charged by prosecutors in Brazil in relation to his work exposing Operation Car Wash. He's been charged with cyber crimes for exposing private messages, quote, that have embarrassed prosecutors and tarnished the image of the anti-corruption task force. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the story that Glenn Greenwald and the other amazing reporters at The Intercept broke, Operation Car Wash was allegedly an anti-corruption operation meant to go after corrupt politicians in Brazil to clean up the government. Well, what Glenn Greenwald and the other reporters at The Intercept revealed was that's not what they were doing. This was almost entirely politically motivated. Now, yes, some of the people who they ended up prosecuting were actually corrupt, but the motives behind the prosecution were political. In the messages that Glenn Greenwald published, it was clear that the right-wing political party, as well as the prosecutors and judges who were part of this task force, were conspiring to lock up members of the Workers' Party, the left-wing party in Brazil, or one of the left-wing parties in Brazil, to get rid of the main opposition that they would face in the upcoming election. One of those politicians was Brazil's sitting president, Lula da Silva, who was implementing popular socialist reforms to the government. He was improving the lives of the citizens, and he was overwhelmingly popular because of it. So it was almost guaranteed that Lula was going to win the upcoming election until he was arrested on bullshit charges related to this Operation Car Wash. And another bombshell that was exposed by Glenn Greenwald in The Intercept in these series of reports that they did was that in those text messages that they obtained, the prosecutors and the judges were going back and forth coordinating, which, by the way, is completely unethical, possibly illegal. They were coordinating on the case that they were trying to make against Lula da Silva, and even they admitted that the case that they had was bullshit. They had no real legal justification to arrest him, and they arguably didn't even have the legal authority to do it. More than that, another thing that was exposed was how Jair Bolsonaro, who is the current president of Brazil, offered to create a new and incredibly powerful position for the judge who was overseeing a lot of these cases, a lot of the prosecutions of the task force, this super justice minister, where he basically is above all the other judges and justices in the country, and he has basically unilateral control over surveillance and prosecution. So this story these series of stories that Glenn Greenwald and The Intercept published were as big as you can get. We're talking about a literal coup orchestrated by a cabal of people, including prosecutors, judges, and a right-wing political party, to overthrow the government, lock up the president on bullshit charges, so that Jair Bolsonaro faced almost no real opposition in the upcoming election, where he later won and has become president of Brazil. The story is as big as it can get, and has implications far beyond just the borders of Brazil, because Brazil is, in terms of population and economy, one of the largest countries in the world. I believe it's the fifth largest in the world. And if such a brazen power grab can happen there, it can really happen anywhere. So Glenn Greenwald really stuck his neck out doing this reporting, and it was important work that needed to be done. And as a result of that, he's been targeted by Jair Bolsonaro's administration relentlessly, leading up to where we are now, him being charged on some bullshit cybercrimes charges for simply doing his job as a journalist. And this is particularly brazen, not only because it's clear that Glenn Greenwald was just doing journalism. He wasn't breaking the law. He was well within his rights as a journalist to do what he did. But also, a judge in Brazil has already ruled from way back in August of last year that the Bolsonaro administration needed to stop any investigation that they were doing of Glenn Greenwald and The Intercept, because what they're doing is trying to censor him, and that is a flagrant violation of Brazil's own constitution. So a judge already ruled that simply investigating The Intercept and Glenn Greenwald was unconstitutional. But here we are today, prosecutors have now charged Glenn Greenwald with cybercrimes. So in order to do that, they had to directly violate a ruling from a judge. So Brazil was already in a constitutional crisis. Jair Bolsonaro by no means was a legitimate president from day one. And now he's not only locking up reporters, he's defying a direct court order to do so. These are scary times for Brazil, especially considering that not too long ago, Brazil was living under a military dictatorship that Jair Bolsonaro was a part of, and has since said he wants to bring back a military dictatorship to Brazil. So the direction that this thing is going in, it looks like that's either exactly where they are right now or not far from it. This is one of those stories where everyone needs to speak out about this. Everyone needs to come to the defense of Glenn Greenwald and The Intercept, because this is just a flagrant violation of not only Brazil's own laws and constitution, but also international law and human rights. So the story's just coming out. I'm sure there are going to be more updates, and when I know more about it, I'll be back with more updates.